when a case is substantiated, does that mean the children are then removed from that parent? Or do the parents potentially still keep their children depending on the severity of the finding?
It's a case by case basis. You have cases where people are substantiated, their kids are out of the house, or their kids are back in the home, or they're supervised. So there's no concrete answer saying if you have this finding, your kids will not be home. I've seen families who have those findings, kids are back in the home. There's no restrictions. They've addressed the issues that came up. The finding remains, which is not great, but the outcome of the case can still be a happy ending minus that finding being on your record.
Wow. I didn't think that that would actually be the situation, especially if they can affect your employment and your job, but keep your children with them. It kind of seems contradiction
It is.
one another.
They can permanently impact your employment in terms of just that one result. All right, can't be a teacher, but that result does not mean permanently can't see your kids or have your kids. I would argue that parental rights, I suppose, would outweigh perhaps an employment right. I don't know employment rights very well myself, technically speaking, in terms of outside the scope of DCP&P and family law, but in terms of permanent impact, that finding it still impacts custody. It still impacts how long cases take, but that finding doesn't mean I can't have my kids ever again.
Wow. And so I know you mentioned earlier about the list and the employment, and if you're on the list, then certain jobs you're going to just immediately disqualify yourself for, essentially. Now, in that one case where they downgraded it, but didn't update their system, and that resulted in someone losing their job or not being able to get their job because of an administrative glitch, essentially. What recourse do you have if that affects your employment unjustly and erroneously, that you really weren't found substantiated and it was a lesser, but because of the admin side of DCP&P, you lose a job or you are unable to secure employment because of that error? Do you have any recourse with DCP&P directly?
Yeah, it's difficult, right? They're a state agency. They have that kind of sovereign veil of immunity. There are ways to fight back and get back on a constitutional level, perhaps even discrimination level. I actually have a client who we don't do discrimination cases here, but we're helping him out with a custody matter through DCP&P or against DCP&P. But he also is actually trying to go after DCP&P for discrimination based on them excluding him based on his gender as a potential placement of a child. But in terms of that situation, fortunately, I was able to address it pretty easily. I told the DAG, you guys are messing up. They fixed it. So it didn't actually have an impact on our client. We were able to correct it before anything substantial happened to her. But in terms of recourse, it's difficult because DCP is a state agency. There are ways to pierce that veil. But in that situation, it's almost a fight not worth fighting.
Wow. So my last question really is, what other effects does a substantiated DCP&P finding have? Kind of like a final restraining order can potentially affect your ability to gain employment, but also travel and get passports and all of these other factors that most people don't think about or even know.
Think the other biggest thing it affects, it doesn't affect travel or passports, things like that, but custody and family court. And you may think, well, as of now, there's no custody issues. We already have an agreement, or we're together, and there's no need to have a custody agreement or custody hearing or family court. But if you find yourself in a custody dispute down the road and you've been substantiated and the other parent has not been,
Then that's a change in circumstances.
they they have a leg up, right, in terms of having primary custody, or maybe not sole, but still ways they can use that to have a leverage or a leg up in a custody dispute. Absolutely. So that's a big deal because someone may say, well, I don't work in schools, or it won't affect my employment, but it can affect seeing your kid perhaps.
No, I can definitely imagine that.